Hi Dreamers, recently I tweeted this out. I helped one person retire with only $250,000 plus Social Security by cash flowing. It was an emergency, really no choice for them. So I stepped in to try to help. And it's been about 15 years, and it's still at $250,000. That's how I knew it could be done. And Dreamers, this is a true story, and it's someone that I continue to help strategize to this day. And to my surprise, this got over 22,000 views and tons of engagement, which tells me that there's a lot of interest in this particular topic, which is how to mentally think about the potential of retiring with an amount about $250,000. So I'm gonna do a little bit of a different one today and just talk through what the strategy is that really helped this person retire and then maintain for all of these years as maybe a starting point for you to start brainstorming how you could turn this into reality as well. So are you ready, Dreamers? Let's dive in. Alright, so I've set up this spreadsheet for us to talk through the entire strategy. And the first part of the strategy is, of course, expenses. So one of the things this person had to do in order to get expenses under control was change geographies. And I know that's a big ask, and for some people, very hard to imagine. But the reality is that there are certain parts of the United States and the world that are a lot less expensive to live in. And if you can start doing a little bit of research and have a little bit of a sense of adventure, sometimes relocating can actually end up being a positive. And for this person, they relocated from a northern state to a southern state. And the results not only helped with the budget, but actually had other benefits like helping with overall health, since the climate is generally warmer and you can walk outside for more of the year, in addition to experiencing new cultures and new traditions. So sometimes relocating can turn out to be a blessing in disguise. Now, some of the states that are a little bit less expensive are states like Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, Mississippi, Louisiana, and in general, Southeast US. So in order to fill in my example spreadsheet, I'm just going to throw a pin at the map and pick Charlotte. So let's do a little bit of research. What is the average cost for a 2-bedroom rental 30 minutes outside of Charlotte? And we get the answer here of approximately $1,200 to $1,600 a month. And this is probably the most important number to do research on, because one of the things to keep in mind is that in terms of a budget, housing is going to be the biggest slice of the pie, representing about 25 to 30% of your entire budget. And then the next biggest parts are transportation, food, and healthcare, which includes insurance. And those really are the non-negotiables. So those are the parts of your budget that you're going to want to do the most research on. So let's start plugging these numbers into the spreadsheet. Alright, so as we start to fill in this spreadsheet, I entered $1,500 a month for rent, which as we saw is near the higher end. So this should be able to get a pretty nice 2-bedroom apartment in the Charlotte area, as an example. And then in doing similar research, which you can do on your own, I started filling in the rest of the expenses. What is the average transportation cost? For example, the cost to have a car with insurance and maintenance, and even a car payment. So I put $750 a month for transportation, another $750 a month for food. I did a little bit of research on the average cost of healthcare per month in the US and found that the average monthly premium for a marketplace individual plan is around $450. So I put $750 in here a month for healthcare, $75 in here for utilities like water and electricity, and just a general bucket of other for anything else that comes up, or the potential of any overages in any of these other key basic categories. And the result of this is just under $55,000 a year, which if you're living in California or New York City, seems like an impossible task to live within. But I am here to tell you that the person I helped had this almost exact budget. And in a minute, I'm going to give you some of the tickers that are used to provide the income to cover this, and also some of the other strategies that were also employed over the last 15 years to help ends meet. So in summary, in terms of expenses, this is a budget that can actually exist if you do enough research and think creatively about your situation. Now, of course, if you have a paid off house or paid off car, or are old enough to qualify for Medicare, then some of these expenses start to go down even more. All right, so now let's switch to the income side. All right, so the first thing we needed to put in was Social Security. And if you're running this tight, the bottom line is you are going to be relying on Social Security quite a bit. And so in doing a little bit of research, the average Social Security in the United States in 2025 was about $1,950 per month, or about $2,000. But I strongly encourage you to go to ssa.gov, if you haven't already, and go down here to Benefits Estimate so that you can see what your particular benefits will be. And hopefully your benefits will be average or even better, but everybody's situation is different, so make sure you look at your particular benefits estimate. But for the sake of this example, let's put in that $2,000 a month. So right away you've got $24,000 a year. And of course, if you can hold off applying for Social Security till your later years, this amount will grow. But honestly, if you need that money because of medical condition or just life circumstance, there's no shame in starting the Social Security as soon as you need it in order to cover your bills. All right, so now let's start putting that $250,000 to work in the market so that it can generate income for you every single month. And so because I know you need the money every single month, we are going to be focused on monthly payers that are pretty high yield, that based on performance have not eroded the underlying asset amount, because we want to make sure that that $250,000 stays intact or maybe even grows a little bit over the course of the rest of your life. So let's start filling this in. So the first two funds I would put money into are QQQI and SPY, which are the NEOS income funds, which I've done dedicated videos about. And if you put $70,000 in each against their current yield, that's going to add approximately another $20,000 to your total income. And although these are going to be taxed, they're a little bit more tax efficient because of the 1256 contracts. So if you want to know a little bit more, check out those videos where I discuss those 1256 contracts. And to the NEOS funds, I would then add maybe something like the Goldman Sachs funds. Now these have a little bit less yield, but they also have some growth built in. And one of the things you're trying to do here is get some diversity across fund managers because they have a little bit different approaches. And also it's good to diversify places just for safety. And so on top of the Goldman products, I probably would add some of the Curve products of KQQQ, MSFY, and Goop. And these are a little bit more aggressive with their option strategies and therefore have a little bit higher yield. So let me talk about this for a second. QQQI, GPIQ, and KQQQ are all based on broad NASDAQ-based indices, and they all use a derivative strategy in order to get that higher yield. Now, the two different ones on here are MSFY and GOOP, which I did a recent video about Goop as an example of how Curve has a very unique approach to their fund management. And so MSFY is a single stock-based derivative fund based on Microsoft, and Goop is a single stock derivative-based ETF based on Google. And so if you believe that both Microsoft and Google are two large companies that are pretty stable and are going to be with us for the next 20, 30, 40 years, then these might be funds you could be interested in to generate just a little bit higher return and also get some growth. And so the last one I might add to this list is Devo. Now, if you know me at all, you know I love Devo. It's a lot safer than the others. And because of that, you get a lower yield. But also over time, you're going to see Devo grow in terms of asset value, which later on, say in 5 or 10 years, you could then transition some of the growth that you've gotten in Devo back into some of these higher payers and effectively give yourself a raise, which is actually exactly what I've helped this person do over time, which is take some of the growth and slowly transfer them back into income engines, like say SPY, in order to get that ultimate income raise. And so the total you see here comes to $54,840 in terms of income, which I'm using a little bit of round math here, but you can see it matching that $54,900 expense line up above. And although my dreamers, I'm using round numbers and giving you an example, and of course everyone's situation is different, this closely resembles the strategy that has worked over the last about 15 years with a real life person that I've been helping. And honestly, it's gotten a little bit easier because in the very beginning, we didn't have access to these income generating products. And so instead, we used some individual high yield stocks like Mo and BTI and some of the telecom stocks in order to fill the gap, but have since transitioned to this strategy because it actually helps to diversify in addition to giving a higher yield. So it's a bit of the best of both worlds. And the one thing I wanted to be careful of is not to put all of the eggs in one basket, because you might be tempted to do something like that, like put everything into NEOS funds or everything into Curve funds in order to get the highest yield. I still recommend spreading your funds across different parts of the market and also some different fund managers, basically because just in case. So in a moment, I'll give you a few bonus ideas that they did in order to help fill the gap and stretch the dollar even further. But before I leave this, I just wanted to say a couple things. Everybody's on a different life journey and time frame, and there's so many reasons why people need to shift to this kind of life and design a different kind of life. And some of that might include healthcare or family or changes in career. There's really tons of different reasons. And so I would encourage you to create a spreadsheet just like this and start doing a little bit of research like I showed you, and really put pen to paper by filling in the actual numbers that pertain to you. And that is what I did with this person to start actually planning out the next real step so that it could become a reality. So think about taking this from concept to reality and using this as a tool for that plan. All right, so let's talk about some of the bonus ideas. Well, one of the things this person did was actually take on some seasonal work. And that turned out to be fantastic because not only did it add a few more $1,000s for about a 5-year period, it was also just great for building relationships in a brand new area. So it turned out to be a positive in so many different ways. Another obvious one is if you can split expenses with a roommate or a spouse. And of course, if they can bring their own Social Security or 401k to the mix, even better. Another hack was splitting vacation expenses with a friend. You know, you can go on twice as many vacations if you can travel on the road with a friend or another couple, and also split those hotel fees. And that was definitely another hack, which had the side benefit of additional social time. There was also a ton of free concerts and festivals. And in the warm weather, those things occurred more year-round, and that was a benefit. And another hack was as you get older, there are more free or drastically reduced gym memberships, including the YMCA. And so that ended up being another great hack, the ability to meet people, work out with friends, work on your health, and just take advantage of area resources for very little fee. And so, my dreamers, I hope that was helpful for you as you start to plug in your own numbers and start envisioning a brand new life on the other side of your career. Let me know what you think in the comments. Well, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this dividend income update. And if you want a richer, real-time experience with me, you can always follow me on Instagram or X. And if you're doing your own research using Seeking Alpha, feel free to find the link below to subscribe if you want, no pressure. As always, I encourage you to do your own research, then implement and learn by putting it into practice. And as a reminder, I'm not a financial advisor, so keep in mind these videos are for entertainment and inspiration only. I'll see you on the flip side.